And Mark, perfect. All right. And Mark, you can jump in anytime you want, say whatever, add in notes, whatever, like good stuff. Okay, so basically I just want to speak to those who um you've never touched Xcode before, never touched Swift before, and you're just trying to get up and running. Hold on one second. Let me just share my screen with you all. Okay. So let's start with the App Store. Okay, so here I've gone to the App Store and we're just typing in Xcode. Okay, so here we have Xcode. Right now, the current version of Xcode is 15.2. Okay, you're going to want to make sure you're at the latest version of Xcode, just so you don't have any like bugs that are just coming up and you're just like, why is this, so you want to make sure that you're going directly to the App Store. It has the latest version. And as you can see up here in this kind of gray area right here, it says requires a Mac OS version 13.5 or later. Okay. So you want to make sure that your Mac is all up to date. So if you need to do a restart and do that first before you download Xcode, just make sure you go ahead and do that. Okay. So Xcode is our IDE. This is where you're going to build out your your application. Mark touched on a couple of things that I want to walk through. Hold on, let me just stop sharing here and share the appropriate Xcode screen. Okay. Once you download Xcode, all right, you're going to see, this is what you're going to see. This is our sort of welcome screen here. Now, on the right side, these are projects. These are all test projects that have no meaning, so you can ignore that. But on your end, this side will be empty. Okay, there won't be anything here because you haven't created a project yet. So you're going to click on create a new Xcode project. Okay. All right. Oh, the window closed. Hold on. Okay, and once that happens, all right, are you able to see this? Okay, here's our next screen. Okay, it says choose a template for your new project. Okay, and we're just gonna simply go to app. Okay, you see we have different kinds. There's a document app, there's a game, an AR augmented reality app. There's all these different kinds. So we're just gonna click on app, and as you can see, we can choose multi-platform as Mark indicated before. We can choose multi-platform. So what that means is it goes all across all the platforms in the Apple ecosystem. So iOS, macOS, watchOS, tvOS, right? So let's choose multi-platform, our app. Okay. Now it's saying, hey, we want to give this project a name. Okay. And this is we're going to call this whatever. Healthy health app. Okay. I like to do dashes. You can do dashes, you can do underscores. You can do camel case, which means healthy, let's call it something else. So it's not, so camel case basically looks like this. Healthy health. Can I spell today? Health app. Okay, so it's camel case. It has like a little hump. So lowercase first, and then the beginning of every word afterwards would be uppercase. Okay, so we're gonna go with healthy health app. Okay, this is the team. So you want to make sure. So it should. I think the updated version, it should just assign you a team name. But basically, if you're registered with the Apple developer program, your team name would be registered here. As you can see. Okay. Then you have your organization identifier. Okay. You can just basically leave this part out. It's going to assign you a bundle identifier. These are all things that are just that work along with identifying your app when you're compiling the entirety of the bundle of your app. Okay. Let's see. We have the ability to use core data. Let me see. There should be something here. Then okay, so now we can save it to our desktop. Okay. You can save it, you can really save it anywhere on your device. But we're going to save it to our desktop. This is going to create a new folder for us where our project will live. Okay, it said the screen sharing paused. Oh, okay. Oh, because it opened up the project. Screen sharing paused. Okay, it paused because it's opening the project. So this, I don't know, Zoom things. One moment.
I have a question.
Yeah.
My app is only for a mobile device. Is it still recommended to choose multi-platform, or would you just choose iOS?
You can choose one or the other. I mean, you can choose any of the single platforms. Um, but yeah, in this case, it might be healthier to do that just so you simplify it. But hold on one second. And do this so that I can share again. Okay, and I should be able to resume here. Okay, I don't know why. Hold on, let's do it again. Okay, can you all see now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Xcode. Okay. So as you can see here on the left side, you have our navigation. So you see the hierarchy of all of these are our Swift files. As you can see with the orange Swift bird, these are Swift files. This is where we're going to store the code. This is where we're going to, if you have any assets, any images, GIFs, videos, things like that, you can add them all here. Hold on, let me how do I remove this? Um okay, I just had to hide you all. Okay. So yeah, you can add different assets, images, image groups here to add into your project and make reference to them later on in your code. Let's see. So let's go to this content view. Okay. As you can see, we're creating an app that's going to be built with Swift UI. Okay. So Swift UI is a framework that we use to build out your interface. Okay. So how your app is going to look, whether we have you have different tabs, you know, what is that going to look? Is it a single page application? Are you going to have any sort of like animations in there, all that good stuff? Like, what is this app going to look like? Okay. And basically we build that out using Swift UI. Now, a lot of the frameworks that we talked about during oh my goodness, it's gonna just deny. Okay, don't worry about that. I had to deny something, so it just looks like that. But basically the frameworks that we were talking about, those are those are for these are actionary things. So those frameworks are for us to produce things, to produce actions, right? So Swift UI is to build out what the interface is going to look like. But if we want to create or receive data, then we would use some of those other frameworks. We use CoreML, VisionKit. So those are going to be to perform these different actions. So how we would use those frameworks is we would use the keyword import here right at the top of our right at the top of our project here. And we can import any one of those frameworks. import Vision Kit. Now we'll be able to access those. Hold on 1 second. Blah, blah. Let's deny that again. That again, just for now. Now we'll be able to access all of the capabilities of Vision Kit, right? We can import Cormel, right? Pretty much import anything, even AR Kit. Oh, we don't have AR Kit here, but let's see. You can import basically anything. So you can go down here. We have AV Kit, which is for producing sound or just processing media as well. So any kind of sound, images, things of that nature. Let's see, what else do we have here? Any interesting frameworks that we can play around with? All sorts of things, but just referencing the ones that we we talked about the other day. This is how we would import those frameworks. We would import those frameworks so that we'll basically have access to all the capabilities that we mentioned. So yeah, we can import HealthKit. Let me see. Yeah, and then we'll be able to basically access those things. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Over here, what you're looking at is basically our content view. So when we're building out, so hold on, I gotta address this error here because which is something to do with my keychain. So I'll stop sharing and address that. But basically our content view, when you're building an app in Swift UI, we have a content view is sort of like this preview of our UI. So as we're building our app and building out the interface, we can see a live preview of what those things are going to look like. So, okay, my app has 3 tabs and I want them centered in this way. There are a live preview can be rendered in that content view. So basically you'll be able to see it, and then you have different options to see it on different platforms, different devices. So hold on, let me just do something real quick. Let me. Okay, let me address the keychain thing. Give me 1 moment here. Okay. Okay. I don't know why this keeps popping up. Okay, that should have addressed it. There we go. All right, something simple. Okay, let's try to share this again. Okay. All right. So, okay. So also, so this is, and we can point you to some content around, building out simple things with Swift UI, building out your interface and cool things that you can do, building your screens for your app, but running the app, right? How will we run the app? So we can try to test it on these different devices. So you see I clicked up here at my Mac icon, which is the default for me right now. So I click on this icon here, and we want simulators. that are up to date. Okay. So the iPhone 15 was just born. So we're going to assume that, you know, we want it on the latest version of iOS. That's the main thing. Most uh most of our screen sizes are pretty similar. So our base versions of our iPhones, so iPhone 14 versus 15, and then our plus versions and our pros, our Pro Maxes, they're similar. So our iPhone 14 Pro is similar to the screen size is iPhone 15 Pro. So those are things that you can depend on there as well. I haven't updated this for iPhone 15 so that I can receive the devices on the iPhone 15. Would pretty much be similar to the iPhone 15 Pro. So let's go with the iPhone 14 Pro.
And the nice thing about just choosing one of those targets as being an iPhone is because you're building it in Swift UI, the layout is automatically going to adjust to the size of the screen. So whether you're using the Max or you're using the mini version, your UI will do the right layout based on just the Swift UI implementation that you've got there.
Okay, so I don't have to like responsiveness is not something that we'll have to handle in the app.
Responsiveness is sort of built into the language itself. The UI framework will take care of doing it. There might be some things where you want to sort of like always have it somewhere very specific, and then you can be very pinpoint about that. But most of the times, it'll take care of it for you. Like if you look at the code that Tamara has up there, there's something called a V stack there that all of this stuff is enclosed within. And that means there's this vertical, every time I go and add something, it's vertically stacked up below the other. And so that gives you that top down. As I go and add a new element, if I added a button below the thing that says text there, it would show up below text. There's also a concept of a H stack as well, if I want something to go this way across horizontally. And there's also something called a Z stack if I want to go and Z index things, like this is directly in front of that, which is directly in front of that. And you can nest all of these. So I can put an H stack inside of a V stack. So I've got things that are lined up this way, but one of these items I want to stretch all the way across the screen. So anyway, you'll get a feel for that. That's sort of standard Swift UI, and it's through these stacking mechanisms that it takes care of the layout for you. It tries to do the right thing on the right platform.
Absolutely. So it's taken a minute to compile just because this is the first time. So a lot of times when you choose a new destination for your app to run, it'll take a little bit of time just to run on that new target. But while that's building, let me just show you a piece of content around what he's talking about, the different kinds of stacks. Just one moment.
Sorry, could I ask a quick question? I was just gonna regarding, I'm also very new, so this is like super helpful. So thank you so much. But just regarding the platforms you were going through earlier, I think our app is going to be mostly for iPhones and iPads. Is there any benefit in choosing the iOS version over multi-platform, or we should just choose multi-platform just to be on the safer side if we want to use other platforms later?
There's nothing wrong with an device specific app. Whether it's watchOS only or iOS only, as long as it it's doing the work that you need to be done and you're getting the most out of it.
Yeah. Let me just show that implementation real quick as well. If you went through the process of creating something that was specific here. So you should be able to see my Xcode here, right?
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah. This is in a project that I'm working on for Vision Pro. It just draws a bunch of cubes. It's written in Swift UI. But if I want to create a new project from within the UI, I would say File, New, Project. And then rather than choosing the multi-platform from this UI, I can just choose iOS. And then the branch, remember I talked about UI kit for doing your layout or Swift UI. You'll have to make that decision here. So let's say, oh, iOS, I want to build an app. I say next, and I call it, you know, whatever the heck I want. The key here is under interface, instead of storyboard, I choose Swift UI. And that will change the predominant language that I'm using to do my layout from UI kit, which is a framework for doing UI, to Swift UI. And then if I go next here, save it wherever, it will land with an app that looks virtually identical to the one that Tamira created. I don't know if this is still sharing or not.
Yes, can still see it. Yeah.
Right. So there it is. And as
Perfect,
a result,
yeah.
I've got the right simulators here already. The preview that you see over here on the right-hand side is specific to the device that I've got for the simulator. And the preview is kind of nice because I can change the different layouts over here and just look at the preview without having to go and run in the simulator. So that would be the path if I chose iOS app. Just make sure you choose Swift UI.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, a lot of the times the reason why we guide people towards Swift UI is super responsive. And if you're just getting started and you're talking about like, oh, I need to figure out all these things around, you know, building out the interface, it is probably the best bet when you're just getting started and trying to figure out, you know, how to build out that that user interface and that experience, right? And the logic is super easy to understand. We talked about the different stacks, a vertical stack versus a Z stack or an H stack or a horizontal stack. So if you really get the logic of how things are going, you can really understand how to put things together. And it's really cool and how it helps to, like Mark mentioned, you know, it helps a lot with the layout overall across devices. You know, so you don't have to figure out, whereas though sometimes when you're using Swift and you have to use the framework for utilizing for building out your interface UI kit with Swift, a lot of times you have to kind of do the math a bit and figure out, you know, how you're going to lay things out on across the axes. Okay, so let me see. I just have my content up. See if I can pull this page up for you. I'm not sure what's doing that. I'm not sure why this is not coming up, but we will include that in the resources. So we should definitely include that in the resources. So we'll give you some guidance on, you know, what the different stacks are and how to, at the very least, so that you have a good picture of what you want to do, like how it's going to look. You know, I don't know what any of your development processes are, like your thinking process. Maybe you need to sketch some things out. You need to, you know, write down, you know, your user flow and just like how, you know, when a user opens this app, you know, what are they going to see? What's the first thing they're going to see? You know, and how will they know to press this versus this, and you know, all of these different things. So sometimes, you know, it's worth, like, I like to scribble. I like to scribble out, like with paper and pen, like to scribble these things out first, and then you sort of like write things down, like literally step by step. And you want to just get the key things there, because I know you only have 2 weeks to implement something and get a good like prototype maybe going, right? But you just want the key things, right? You know, you want you want to figure out what are the core things of your app. And you want to make sure that your user can get to that very quickly, and that it's intuitive, like it makes sense for them, you know, like it's very straight to the point and simple for them to figure out what they need to do. And they can figure that out very fast. So yeah, the interface is really going to be really important. Let me see. So we'll provide some resources on that, to do that with SwiftUI. Let me see.
Is there a way for us to access the user details? Like, is there a user object?
There isn't a user. So basically, you would organize that data yourself. Basically, you would create sort of your own model, so to speak. So you would create objects, create a user object and all the attributes that you need for that user to have, right? So your object could be user, and then what are the attributes of that user, right? The data that you want to be read or written, right? Or the data that you want to persist. For example, you know, if I'm creating a car object, you know, okay, a car has wheels, it has lights, it has this or that, a color, a make, a model, the year. These are the different attributes that can be, you know, read or written, right? So these are like mutable attributes that you want to be able to receive, right? So you would do the same thing for your user. What are the things that you want to take from the user? Is it their age? Is it their gender? Is it their weight? Is it all of these different things? So you would create a user object in order to and give it all of those attributes. So you would do all of that programmatically.
So we don't get that from the system itself. We have to request the user to share that information and have our own database with the SwiftUI.
Correct. Yeah, there is no like, give me the user on the device, obviously for sort of privacy reasons.
Yeah.
So most apps have, like, if they want to collect user information, they've got a form.
Yeah.
First name, last name, those types of things. Now there is information that you can get from HealthKit, such as age, weight, sort of health statistics types things.
Okay.
But part of accessing HealthKit, there's a permission prompt as well. So you have to basically say, hey, as a developer, I'm interested in these attributes. And then those attributes and why you want access to those are presented to the user. And they say, sure. Or they say, maybe that one, but not that one. And they hit OK. And then that's provided to your app. But there is no sort of system user access right away, just out of privacy.
Got it. Okay. Is there a particular database you would recommend using with SwiftUI?
Well, it depends. I mean, database, it's sort of part of the hardest thing with creating a database is creating a back end and having them talk to each other. So to the extent that you want to have a server side aspect to this as well, then you need to think about that. If not, then just a SQLite local database is super easy to read and write to. We have a technology called Swift Data. It's a framework for reading and writing data. I think it's pretty straightforward to go and read and write and query for data. So that's a good framework to take a look at. And it's something that's part of SwiftUI. So by building in SwiftUI using Swift Data as your data store is the way to go. Other people, because they want to have a backend that matches the local database, they'll use Firebase as that sort of middleware piece. And that's something we don't provide, but you can go to Google, download it, you include it in your project, and then it takes care of the synchronization and those types of things. We also have something called CloudKit as well. And so you can write to a local repository using that Swift Data API, and it will save it to the cloud. So that data is then associated with the user's account in iCloud that everybody's got, because they have an Apple ID. And the nice thing about that database is you can create a database that's shared across users as well. So to the extent that you want to coalesce a lot of information into one database, you have the ability to do that as well. So, I sort of the easy path for me is using Swift data. And then to the extent that you want a server-side component to it, use, where the data is also served or stored off the device, then just checking the box to say that it includes support for CloudKit, and you'll get that.
Okay. But with all the health kit, research kit, we're not required to use a database because
No. I mean, if you could have all that data, you could even just write it to a flat file yourself, right? There's the file manager APIs where you could just write it out and then read it. Or, depending on how long you want this data to live, if it's just a demo app, it could be that you have to fill it out every time. And if somebody kills the app, the data goes away. But as long as it's in memory, that information will be in memory. And maybe the database is the last thing you really need to do. It's like, okay, I got all these screens. I've got all these objects in memory that have all this data. I better go write them out. How am I going to go and write them out? Maybe that's something that you do later on versus struggling with a database structure and all of those things.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And if I want to so if I have an app and I want to share it with Satvik, Satvik is not a developer. So what kind of, is there an environment I would push it to?
Yeah, well, so you could use GitHub. So if you're familiar with Git as a repo, then just use GitHub and push it to there. You could also just find the project folder within your Mac and email it or AirDrop it or put it on a thumb drive and give it to them.
I mean, could he get it on his phone somehow? Or
Yeah, so you'd have to, the way that you go and get it on a device is you would plug in the phone to your Mac and then you say, oh, build it. But instead of building it for a simulator, build it for this device. So you'd get his phone nearby and put it on it.
Got it.
That we have something called ad hoc distribution as well, where you could put the app on a website, but you would need the ID of his phone. It's a little bit more complicated. You need a developer account and all those types of things. So it's usually just like plug in their phone, hit build, their phone is the target, and it'll show up on there.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for bearing with all my really fundamental questions.
This is great stuff.
Yeah.
Makes me feel like a genius because it's the yeah, none of them are hard yet. So keep them coming.
Okay. Yeah, no, this was amazing. I think I learned a lot sitting in this session.
Okay. So something to throw out there is a name for Paul Hudson is a developer that's really big in the Swift UI and Swift community.
Okay.
If you just Google for him, he's got a couple of websites, and it's like so many great questions are answered, like, how do I do this? And then he's got a really nice code snippet, and he's got some videos and all sorts of things. And so he's a great developer. He's got a keen eye for communicating fairly complex features to people in a way that's super clear. So Paul Hudson is great. He doesn't work for Apple. I kind of wish he did, but it's also great that he doesn't, because we can push people there and it's kind of this unbiased opinion. But he's got some great content that'll get you started, and he's got it for UIKit if you're not using Swift UI, but then he has a ton of stuff for Swift UI as well.
I will definitely refer to Paul Hudson's work.
Yeah.
Okay.